So there's 3 bad boards in here right now, and you can see that 2 of them have little gouges and chips into them. So those need to be removed, those 2. And then there is a 3rd board that has actual rot in it. So we need to get that out of there. We've actually stepped through that one a few times. So start off by measuring the boards. Make sure that we get the length correct on those. And then we want to get those cut to length. Now, removing the old board can be a bit of a challenge. There's going to be screws that are holding that in. Once you remove all the screws, then you're going to find that some of the prior times that you've stained it, or just things that have fallen in the boards, are going to have kind of locked it in place, glued it in a little bit. So use whatever tools you have that are handy. In this case, I just have some pry bars that I can use and get that lifted up. What you may find is that one end you can finally get up and the other one's going to be sticking. So pull up the one end, jam something in there, and then just keep going along the board until you can get all of them and get the board pulled up and put that off to the side for disposal later. So we have the new board all cut up and we're going to slide it into place. Now, it can be kind of difficult to get it put in place correctly the first time because of the weight of the board. So I found that it's kind of handier to prop the one end up on an object, then push the board into the place, pull that out, and it snaps right into place. Kick it a couple times and get the boards butted up to each other. And once that's done, you want to start the process of attaching that board. I'd like to pre-drill the holes. That way I don't have to worry about splitting the wood, especially on the end. Also helps the screws go in a lot easier. Now on the end I'm putting in more screws than normal. I'm putting in 4 instead of 2. On this case I'm using a 3.5 inch coated deck screw. 3 inch you'll probably get by with just fine. I use an impact driver. To use a regular drill, you could possibly burn it out, but when it comes to that last amount to really push it through the wood, an impact driver is really going to make all the difference in your life. It's just going to be a whole lot simpler doing that. So I pre-drill the hole. After I center the board from left to right to make sure water can run through between the boards. Pre-drill the hole, get a screw, put it in. In this case, there's 4 of them to do. So then I just start working my way down the board. Most of the rest of them I am putting 2 screws over the top of each joist. You can see that I'm moving the board back and forth to try to center it within the other boards. That allows more water or rain to be able to run through, so you're not going to be as likely to get rotting going on. And then on the 2 ends I'm running 4 screws on each board. So preparing here now the next 2 boards. The first one is complete. So it's always a great idea. Measure more than once on the piece that you need to know the length. Measure multiple times on the piece that you're going to be cutting. It can be expensive if you cut one wrong. So mark out the length, use a little square, and be able to draw your lines across on that. Then get ready and use a skill saw. So that's the first board. Now starting to do the same process for the second board. Make sure we get the length correct on that. Now, I bought 12 footers on this, and the deck is 24 feet wide. But a 12 footer actually winds up being just an extra inch or two longer, which can be really handy. And though it's marked as a 6-inch wide board, actual width is 5.5 inches. Now, as you're watching the process on this, the one thing I can guarantee you is I am not an expert in construction. I've had lots of practice on many, many projects, but you will find many different ways of doing this, many people with other ideas on how to do this. So this is just the way that I've been doing this. So here we can see now we are removing the prior boards, and just go one screw at a time and remove them all. This again is a time where the impact driver, screwdriver, will make all of the difference in the world. And again, just start to pry it loose. You'll see my expensive tools here. That's a garden. Well, actually, an ice chopper. Here in Minnesota, those get to be pretty handy things to have. But just start prying up the board, one end. Put an object under the one side if you're having problems, so that you can have that end propped up in the air. And then keep on prying. Sometimes I found that the middle of a board, in this case this deck was built for us by a contractor, he had put a nail in the middle of each board, which is why it's a little bit difficult for me to get them pulled up and pulled out. So the new board basically just slips right in. Now, unfortunately, this board was warped pretty badly. I didn't notice it when I was picking it up at the lumber yard. But you'll see that when it's warped like that, you're going to have a lot of struggle to get the board moved side to side on it. So I'm using the ice scraper again, try to move it side to side so that I can get it centered in between the other boards as well as I possibly can. In this case, hold it to the side where you need it, drill the hole, put in the screw, and attach it in, and that will help make sure that that particular spot is centered. Once you have the first screw in on that joist, the other ones can be put in without needing the additional tool. And again, I put 4 screws on the end of each board just for extra security. That tends to be the spot on our deck where they've warped a little bit more, and that's one of the reasons those were needing to be replaced. So I have a chisel in the one instance that I'm using to move the board over. And if nothing else works, you take out a little hammer to get that board flat with the other boards. Now on that last one, I had the screwdriver at a little bit of an angle to the board. You'll notice that when you do that, you're going to tend to be able to pull the board over just a little bit by doing that. In this case, you're not going to be able to pull it over a lot, but an extra 1/8 of an inch might help you to be able to get it centered in between the other boards better. So that board's done. Time to move on to the last of the 3. Start removing the screws the same exact way. All told, this project took about 3 hours of time. A lot of that is just getting the setup, making sure that you have the correct tools. As you can see, my various pry bars and things like that to remove the boards. Just getting all the tools in the correct spot. Now, many of these tools, skill saw and things like that, if you don't have one, you can go to different rental centers. Sometimes you'll be able to find them at your hardware store, big box hardware store, and they do rentals on some of those. One good point to make, it's a pretty obvious one. When the board is removed, don't step over the top and go through that. Try not to let pets or kids go on the deck while you're doing that process, because you go through that board and you've got all kinds of fun coming your way. So 4 screws on the end. This board I got very lucky on. It was extremely straight, so it was very quick to be able to put in. So you can see that it's not a lot of work to be able to do something like this. It's probably about 3 hours time, medium difficulty for a person. More a matter of the tools and then the patience to be able to push a board back and forth to make sure that it's going to be centered in between the other boards. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, please post them below. If you're a contractor or somebody that does this on a regular basis, please make sure to share any comments down below. Other people that are watching the video can use your input and they may find better ways, easier ways, or some tips and tricks for being able to make the project go a little faster and make it a little easier for them. So click the subscribe and put on any comments on that, and always appreciate it on that. And enjoy all of this while you watch an old guy doing some work. Thanks for watching.